eye for an eye. The subject of whether or not the death penalty has been a question that will be debated until the end of time. From the kings and queens of the Roman Empire to our very shores of the West Coast, you can build a case for or against the death penalty. There are always discussions on if government should or should not be able to have the right to kill another human being. This difficult question continues to plague societies across time. It is my belief that there are two circumstances that would use capital punishment or the death penalty. The criteria needed to sentence someone to death would include degree in any form, or would include murder in any form, and some instances of rape. If a guy rapes a girl on a college campus and it's proven to be an isolated incident, then should he be sentenced to death? No. But if the same gentleman goes around on campus, off campus, raping women, then it's not an isolated incident, and this changes the circumstances. There is clearly a difference of his intentions involved, and the actions of the rapist constitutes a problem. With one exception to the guideline for the death penalty should be the instance of child rape cases. If the perpetrator rapes a child who's under the age of 14 and he is over the age of 21, then he is convicted, he should receive the death penalty. This means that there's felons out there that do not go past go, do not collect $200 or a free ticket to death row because you just qualified to be scum of the earth. Cuban immigrant George Garzon, the new district attorney for San Francisco, who took office on January 5th of this year, having spent the last 30 years as a police officer, changed his views over the last several years. He now feels that we need to acknowledge that the death penalty is broken beyond repair, as quoted in the Death Penalty Information Center from the Death Penalty Information Center. Mr. Garzon goes on to say that with 13 convicted felons by a jury of their peers, which were executed in California since 1973, had an average stay on death row of 17 and a half years. That's according to the Death Penalty Information Center again. Well, he mentioned that it costs about $90,000 a year to keep these special housing units away from the general population. It's not cost effective anymore. And he feels that they should be in prison without chance for parole. But according to 2008 and 2009 statistics from the information of California Nonpartisan Financial Policy Advisor, the average cost to hold a prisoner is $47,000. If the new DA thinks that life in prison without the opportunity for parole is the way to go, then the taxpayers need to hope that these inmates are now over 40 years old when they get sentenced. After 35 years in general population, not including inflation, you'll have the same cost for somebody for housing them in death row for 17 and a half years. This means that if the prisoner is in his 20s and he gets a 50-year sentence, the cost to house them at nearly $50,000 would be about $2.5 million of taxpayer money to house this person. Russ Heinrich, the spokesman for the California Department of Corrections, said that in the most recent medical bill for 156,000 inmates, the bill was $663 million. That's $420 per inmate. The state of California in 2009 provided an inmate with a heart transplant that cost nearly $1 million, including follow-up care. This inmate was not on death row. He was only 31 years of age at the time. There are many hard-working individuals that need medical care, including transplants that cannot afford health insurance, have inadequate insurance, or do not qualify for any health care assistance at all. Repeat offenders is a big problem also. There are just a few reasons, or just another reason, to have the death penalty. The cost of housing offenders and the amount of time that prisoners spend incarcerated do not justify the cost. 67% of inmates in the California Department of Corrections are returned felons who have been previously housed in the prison system. This is 20% higher than the national average, according to the Center for Investigative Reporting. Most recently in California in the November election, they chose to revise the three-strike policy. The three-strike policy was if you are convicted of 3 felonies, you go to prison for life without parole. They feel that that is too harsh and discriminatory and used disproportionately against minorities and members of racial, ethnical, and religious communities, according to Amnesty International. Since the law was in place, crime rates have been the lowest they have been in over a half century. The anti-death penalty organization, Amnesty International organization, states that keeping the death penalty is reducing resources available to prevent crime, mental health treatment, education, rehabilitation, and meaningful victim source resources and drug treatment programs. This policy really takes true to the old adage that Peter really does pay Paul. At the cost of one program just falls to another. Having the death penalty will solve many of our potential problems. This would include lowering the cost of incarceration to the states, giving a sense of closure to victims of crimes, and would also lead to the reduction of crime rates itself, as people would feel safer, and would lead to the restructuring of some gun laws themselves. Something that Democrats in Washington would like to see is take guns off the street. In closing, the death penalty would free up monies to communities that are desperately looking to help keep ways of social programming and help keep these criminals off the streets by not allowing them to become criminals in the first place.